We have a full, I hate that notification. Hold on. All right, we're officially starting. Let me get to my agenda.
Oh, good, thank you.
All righty, we're gonna go ahead and start the Community Development Commission meeting for April 19th, 2023 at 3:30. And we'll start with a roll call, please, Tony.
Chair Villarreal,
Present.
Commissioner Torres,
Here.
Commissioner Hughes,
Here.
Commissioner Watkins,
Here.
Commissioner Padilla.
I am here.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes from staff?
Wait, we have another commissioner, wasn't
Did
there?
they come, I guess am I already off?
Oh, that's so weird. I didn't even see you. How come Tony didn't see you either?
Yeah,
We
I'm so
didn't see
sorry.
you. Sorry. We're sorry.
Problem, I'm here.
Awesome.
Commissioner Lopez, sorry for that.
It isn't Tony's fault. On the screen for Zoom, it didn't show you up, like the owl didn't like connect that you came into the room. So I'm so sorry. I actually didn't see you either. Good to see you, Carla. I wish I was there in person. Just so you all know, I've been sick and full of snot and coughing a lot, so I didn't want to subject you to all of that. So I'm on Zoom today. And so Tony, we're going to go ahead and the approval of agenda. Was there anything from staff or changes?
No changes from staff, Madam Chair.
All right, any changes from the commission?
No.
None here.
None. All right, so what is the wish of the commission?
I move to approve the agenda.
Great.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Can we get a roll call then, Tony?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Villarreal,
Yes.
Commissioner Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins,
Commissioner Lopez.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, I didn't hear Commissioner Watkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next item. We have the approval of our minutes from our March 1st, 2023 meeting. Are there any changes from staff?
No changes from staff.
Any changes from commissioners?
Not for me.
All right, and what, if seeing none, what is wish of the commission?
Commissioner Padilla moves for approval as submitted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, can we get a roll call, please, Tony?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Villarreal,
Yes.
Commissioner Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, we are moving right along to our presentations. We have a presentation on scaling equitable resident ownership in the United States. And we have two guests, Paul Bradley, who's president of Rock USA, and Rob Wilson, EVP. I'm not sure what EVP stands for. Vice President of something of Cooperative Solutions for Rock USA. And I don't know if staff wanted to give us some context before we have our guests present, and just to get some time frame. How long is your presentations? Just so we can gauge our time for today.
Cody, I believe, asked for 20 minutes. Rob and I would attempt to do so with about 10 minutes of prepared remarks and then open for questions, Chairwoman.
Great, thanks so much. And Cody, did you want to give some context before we start?
Yeah, I'll give a quick introduction. Director Ladd and I got to meet with Paul and Rob, and they have a really interesting model, and we were hoping to have them come to the commission as a first foray into the Santa Fe area and maybe explore the possibility of implementing this model at one of the needed communities around here.
Commission from the back.
Yes.
Go for it. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate this opportunity. And as I said, Rob Wilson, who's Executive Vice President at Rock USA in the area of co-op solutions here with me. Let me just frame up very quickly the mobile home park or manufactured home community preservation strategies that are taking place across the country. Now that virtually everybody recognizes what a valuable source of affordable housing, manufactured housing or mobile home communities represent. We've got public and private players taking various strategies to preserve and improve this housing stock. And principally, there's some public policy initiatives that have taken place, and then there's some market-based strategies. On the public policy front, you see a range of states adopting what is effectively rent control in mobile home parks. You see that at a municipal level in some states, and you've seen it statewide in Oregon and New York, for instance. You've also seen some initiatives to zone existing manufactured housing communities for exclusive use as manufactured housing, thereby reducing or eliminating the risk of change of use closures when a developer buys a property and wants to change its use. I'd say there's then a variety of policies that are actually meant to support some of the market-based strategies that are underway. And principally in market-based strategies, what we're talking about is removing these properties, these communities as a whole, from the speculative real estate market and into either resident ownership or into nonprofit ownership. And you see this activity in Rock USA in 21 states. There's really about a 40-year history of nonprofits and resident leaders stepping up and acquiring their communities as co-ops. And I personally have been supporting resident ownership for the past 35 years. So this is it's a fairly tried and true method of preservation. And there are several public policy or public pieces to both resident and nonprofit ownership. So we have 6 states in the country that effectively have opportunity to purchase legislation, what you might think of as right of first refusal laws that allow for residents to compete to purchase their community. There's a whole host beyond those 6 states of very weak notice laws, but 6 states that have effective statutes. There's also a fairly significant level of public investment, be it in housing finance authorities that participate in financing or leveraging of CDBG resources, and even some state and city resources that are used to support resident ownership and the acquisition of the community. I'm going to let Rob give the quick thumbnail sketch. We have many more slides that Cody and Alex said were in your packets. So there's a lot more information here, but we just wanted to do a quick drive-by and then have follow-up questions, because what's on your mind is what's most important. So Rob, why don't you take it from there?
I'm going to jump forward a little bit. Thanks, Paul. I'm going to jump forward a little bit, but just stop before I do that and say, this, I think, Paul would be very quick to say, along with all the technicalities of real estate and the large sums of money that are involved, it's really about the homeowners and the families, and it's about the communities. And at the core of our model is the idea of resident ownership, as I think you know. The issue that the residents face, that I think Paul alluded to very briefly, is the lack of security of land tenure. So as most of you are probably aware, people own their homes, but not the land under their homes. And that for many decades was not really a problem because the investment community had not really discovered the really what good investments these properties are. But it goes to what we now need to do to fulfill that mission, is that, you know, we have to both help organize the community and educate the community so that they can form a co-op and essentially take on a multi-million-dollar business and learn to run that property. And we also have to help them, often in a very short period of time, make that acquisition in a competitive marketplace. And the marketplace is really quite competitive these days. You know, it's become more like traditional affordable housing in many ways. That there was a day when, you know, a loan could take out an owner and the owner's profit would pay the loan and everybody would move on happily. Now the high price markets really require some form of subsidy, just like affordable housing. So we've seen more and more involvement from, as Paul was saying, from states, from municipalities, from philanthropies, from actually some major corporations too. It's interesting how many different sorts of entities and people with different points of view in the world are coalescing. So in addition to the community organizing and the financing piece, there's a capital raising piece. We actually have our own affiliated lender, Rock USA Capital, because the cooperative owners, really without some form of assistance and without some concessionary financing, wouldn't stand a chance of raising that money from third parties. And I'm going to keep jumping forward here. You know, for those of you who are, you know, interested in the kind of geeky technicalities of this stuff, you know, we lend more than the properties are worth to finance the transaction costs. You know, we don't get involved in lending to individual homeowners. We're very much focused on the land, although we have broad industry connections and we can put people in touch with those sources. We're very much a believer that we do one thing, we do it pretty well, and we have to focus on it to scale it. So, you know, the third piece of the puzzle, along with the financing and the financing piece and the community education piece, are these teams that we talk about as our TA teams. These are actually, many of them think of themselves as community organizers. So this is the soft side of what we do. These are the folk who go door to door and help people realize what the opportunity is and how they can come together, and honestly help them work through the problems that they face as they're doing it. Because we're not going to pretend that it's a tough road. It's a challenge for these communities to get through, which is why when they do buy their community and they have we call it the We Own It celebration, it is such a cause for celebration for most. And that's pretty much where we're at in terms of the presentation. And I'm going to stop there because those are the three corners of what we do: the people to do the work, the money to make it happen, and identifying the deals and, you know, picking the right communities that are suited to become resident owned. Yeah. And I could go on for a lot longer, but I'm going to stop there and Paul can tell me what I forgot.
No, I would just emphasize one point, which is, you know, finding the communities, which is there's a transition in ownership taking place across the country right now as the silver tsunami really kicks in. We've got traditional, local, you know, what in the business is called mom and pop operators that are increasingly selling out to large consolidators. And it's the large consolidators in your state you would recognize them probably coming from California, Denver, Chicago. They are coming with aggressive capital and are raising rents dramatically on low income residents. And so the key here is to be in touch with longtime owners, local owners, before they sell to one of those large out of states, and give the local homeowners an opportunity to purchase their community. We're doing our best work when we're talking with that 20 and 30-year owner of that property and educating them on on how a sale to the residents can work. So with that, I think, Rob, that was very good. And I know we rushed through that, but again, the most important thing is questions that are on your minds and whatever we can bring from our experience.
I would also say, Paul, that I agree with you that the kind of mom and pops are the kind of the gold standard. But we often also step in when, you know, we hear from the residents or we hear from government that a park is up for sale, and people know what the potential buyer has done in other parks. So there's more than once who scrambled to get that done as well.
That's true. Very true.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. And I think I'm just assuming this is why staff wanted to bring this to our attention. There are multiple mobile home parks. We have quite a bit in Santa Fe, and they are a
Yes.
form of affordable housing for us in our community.
Yes.
And I think as we're seeing, and I've been hearing as a counselor, there are corporate interests that have been looking into mom and pop shops, and it's making it putting residents in vulnerable situations. And so I think just looking at this rock option is giving local homeowners the option for control and housing security. And I think there's folks on the commission that will have questions about this as for today and maybe into the future. And I think I saw Commissioner Hughes raise, did you raise your hand? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next to South Carolina, we have the most people of any state living in mobile homes, 1 out of 6. So this is extremely important to do this and do it right. What you get in New Mexico of folks being able to gain control of the ownership of the land in any mobile home parks?
We haven't entered the state as yet, Commissioner. We are just now, we're in 21 states with resident-owned communities, and we're continuing our work to scale this across the country. So this really is a state-by-state developmental system that needs to be created. And that's why actually engaging early with the public sector is really important, because these properties have become so expensive that we've got to have philanthropy, the public sector, and the nonprofit sector all at the table, including the private sector. Frankly, banks and insurance companies are large lenders in this space and frequent partners of ours. So this is the start of a longer conversation, Commissioner. But we're excited to be in New Mexico. In Albuquerque, there's been a significant consolidation of Albuquerque communities. I could share those those sales information on that. And it is interesting, Santa Fe seems to be a little bit in a bubble with still some, without the consolidation that's hit Albuquerque. And I'm not sure why.
Seems like you're playing a role of akin to the Trust for Public Land on public properties, which is where we're at here in part of Santa Fe. We swooped in and bought this and kept it until the city could move forward. Is that your model? Is it be early and often and then get in before the large predators come in? Yeah,
Begin to build relationships with those community owners. And importantly, we don't begin on the resident organizing side. We begin on the community owner side, because the only time it's really the point at which the community is for sale and it's a viable purchase for the homeowners, that's when to bring it to the homeowners. There's no reason to create a lot of anxiety or excitement if the property is not for sale or if it's simply just not viable. So we're pretty judicious about that. And so to your point, be there and building relationships with community owners, because what we see across the country is when homeowners get together, and have in front of them a viable opportunity to purchase, they are voting in record numbers to purchase their communities. It is one of the things that all the media attention to this sector and the underlying insecurity they have felt over the years about owning a home on rented land. People are turning out and voting in the affirmative to purchase their communities, but it only works if we can put a viable opportunity on the table.
And also, Paul, I think that we're discovering more and more as the market gets more competitive that knowing people in the market and being well acquainted with, you know, the local government and the state government and the financing sources. Healthcare is another source that is almost a kind of healthcare CRA process, healthcare investors, but knowing who the key people are and where the resources are is critical when we actually start seeing transactions, because the actual transaction is only a part of the puzzle.
Thank you.
And it's a challenge for the public sector, Commissioner. The timing, this is a commercial real estate market that happens with velocity. So the market has gotten so crazy. There are actually mobile home parks being bought on 30 days cash offers. That's how competitive it has gotten. So obviously that's impossible for us to compete with, but you know, standard timeframes, 120 days from contract to closing is a typical time frame for us. So it means prearranging those relationships and building those resources in advance so that we can act with agility.
And it's all, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it also seems to be evolving that there are more layers of financing. I mean, there's more bridge lending, and you know, it's not one and done. There's a sequencing of financing that, you know, we need to be able to navigate as well. Sorry.
No problem. Commissioner Hughes, you still have the floor.
Thank you.
Okay, and I can't see everybody, so if somebody has a question, maybe you just speak up, because the owl camera shows this pan that, and I can't see anybody's hand except for Commissioner Padilla.
I was first, Commissioner.
Okay. Who's that? Is that
Commissioner
Commissioner?
Torres.
Okay, Commissioner Torres, go ahead.
I know of one situation here in Santa Fe, but I haven't verified it, that there has been already a change of ownership in a park. And the other thing that has happened is that park owner gets fuel for heating. And then they started to really charge up what families are getting charged for that. For instance, they were paying like $100 for home heating 1 month, and then all of a sudden it went to $500. And then there's even families that got a bill for $700. Have you seen anything like that anywhere else?
I haven't seen it with heating fuels. You see it with other pass-through expenses, though. It is a trend in the industry to pass through water, sewer, trash expenses. The more of those variable costs that can be passed on to the homeowner, in addition to raising the rents, is all part of the formula for you know, generating cash flow. So that we've seen, but I have not seen messing with heating fuels. This is a you know, a consumer protection area that is really under well, how should I put it? There needs to be stronger consumer protections. It's a quiet sector that's been largely overlooked over the years, but it really does impact a lot of homeowners, and folks are being taken advantage of in new ways all the time.
I'm wondering if that becomes a strategy by the new owners to try and push people out, and then you know, sell or change the purpose of that particular piece of land.
I think that if somebody is bent on a change of use, they're usually pretty open about that from what we see. And you can tell which kind of properties are prone to that. I think generally, and all owners are not necessarily voracious sort of cash flow hounds, but the ones who are, they know that the housing market is so hot right now, they will get the rents as they push them up from somewhere in that market. What they don't really care about is whether or not it's from the existing tenants or whether from it's somebody who, you know, wants to own rather than rent a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment.
Thank you.
Commissioner Torres, do you have any other questions?
Thanks.
Anyone else in the room that I can't see? Have your hand up?
Anne would like to ask a question.
Oh, great. Commissioner Watkins, and then we'll go to Commissioner Padilla. Sorry, Commissioner Padilla, I haven't forgotten about you.
And, oh, actually, he's before me. Oh, well.
All right, please proceed.
Well, I think this is great. I'm a big proponent of co-ops, have been my whole life. Actually helped start a number of them, including our food co-op here and some housing co-ops and various others. I think it's also, there's an opportunity to really grow this concept because there are so many people, there's so much talk about the problems with capitalism. And there's so many people trying to think through ways of having to, you know, different ways of dealing with ownership and especially building equity. And this is certainly one of them. I have 2 brief things, and these would need much longer conversations, but you touched on the issue of financing. I'm fascinated to hear that more lending institutions are starting to consider this kind of thing. And I wonder if you have found any particular ones that we might think about talking to in New Mexico, co-ops, any particular banks. And my other question, and this is a long and challenging conversation, and that is that, you know, co-ops really are grassroots democracy, and democracy, boy, in my experience, democracy is really, really hard. And I'm just curious as to how you work through that to get it set up. As I said, long conversations, and I know Renee is feeling like this is too long already, so.
No. Oh, thank you, Commissioner Watkins. Share your enthusiasm for co-ops. Just quickly, the National Co-op Bank is a financing partner of Rock USA Capitals. So that would be a lender you would recognize, I'm sure. The key about the financing is, as Rob said, it's 110% LTV because this limited equity co-op model works very well in low income communities because people don't have to come up with a large membership share. So it requires a nonprofit or public sector, very subordinate lender. So banks like Ally Bank and Key Bank are partners of Rock USA's as well. They can't come to these communities directly without a CDFI or the public sector playing a very subordinate role. So that's why we tend to organize the capital in places where we're working. In terms of the coaching and the democratic ownership, this really is the frontline technical assistance providers' role and responsibility. And then behind them, we have built an online training platform called Rocket. We have a National Leadership Institute for co-op leaders. We create peer-to-peer networking opportunities for co-op leaders. So we have a view that this is a lifetime partnership with the community, and our responsibility is to support healthy democratic decision-making. And of course, that, you know, runs the gamut in terms of the health, but that remains the basic responsibility that we hold is support healthy democratic decision-making in these communities over time, which means investing in leaders and supporting these communities.
And Paul, I think those two overlap because we sort of intermediate between the bank and the co-op. We do the underwriting, and you know we do that fairly well, and then the banks underwrite us. So the banks are not lending directly to the co-ops. I think that in various co-op financing that I've done in various lives, that's a really important part. And the other piece is that the fact we're providing that technical assistance and our loan servicing goes beyond checking to see the money's coming in each month. People know that it's a different sort of CRA commitment, even as a big bank, than if they were just lending the money.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Watkins, you still have the floor. Do you have any other questions?
No, this is great. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
setting
you.
this up.
Thank you for your patience, Commissioner Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bradley, Mr. Wilson, thank you so much for your presentation. Question for you. Did I understand correctly that you do not have a project that you are currently involved with or participating in the New Mexico market? Is that correct?
We have one project we're evaluating in Gallup at the moment,
Okay.
ironically, but we have not rolled our sleeves up in Santa Fe or elsewhere in the state as yet.
Okay, would there be a market that you are in that is comparable to Santa Fe that you could share information about that project with us so that we can take a look at it? I think you've got a great concept, and I'd like to see more, especially a project that is similar to our population, our demographics, et cetera. If you would forward that at your convenience, that'd be great to take a look at. Thank you.
Sure.
That's all I
Sure.
have, Madam Chair.
You bet. We have two projects in Texas, Commissioner Padilla, that I think will be particularly interesting to you. Both largely Latino communities. We also have projects in Colorado that I think have some parallels to what you would see in Santa Fe. Again, a high cost market, and mixed communities, and lots of housing cost pressures that people are facing. So,
Great.
Rob, those are the two states that immediately jump to mind, but probably are others.
Yeah, we'll pull out, we'll probably send you more than a couple. We'll send you a range because the characteristics of 55 plus and family communities are different, and middle income versus low income. So we'll pull out a wee range so you can see the sort of things that will let you slot your own thoughts in.
Outstanding. Thank you. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Padilla. Any other questions from commissioners? I think the only question, go ahead. I see Commissioner Torres.
Question that comes to mind is, do you look for a standard in the condition of the home for the part that's becoming a co-op? Do you feel that it's important that a certain standard, that the home be at a certain standard, or does that matter?
First off, resident ownership works best where communities are owner occupied. So homes are not rented, they're owned. And two, where there's a level of obvious investment in the home, not in a, certainly not a transient community, and not in a, highly degraded community from a quality side. What I would say though is a lot of older manufactured housing with not a lot of investment can be improved dramatically. And so, linkages to weatherization programs and other programs that can deal with housing quality along with a resident purchase, highly desirable. And it's something that we look to partnerships we look to create as we enter areas. So we've had Habitat for Humanity that have rehabbed homes in communities and made for some very affordable, largely rehabbed homes that make for excellent affordable housing. So it's not, I'd say each community has to be evaluated on what the opportunity is and what the current condition is. But resident ownership does not work in very low investment neighborhoods. There has to be an obvious pride of ownership that, at to a certain level.
Thank you.
And the infrastructure, when we go into a project, I mean, it's part of the financing, but it's part of the whole conversion process. we will figure out and often discover that the infrastructure has not been well maintained. There's been deferred maintenance, and that will be factored into our assessment of financing need. And the community will start with a plan to remediate that over appropriate timeframes. So that's the flip side of that coin about the condition of the parks.
Thank you. I see a hand waving, but I think as Commissioner Toda is saying, you have no further questions. Okay, I think the one question I have, and it may involve another or longer conversation, or maybe just some information, is that when you're actually doing the outreach and doing the door-to-door, do you work with the local resident, someone that's in the mobile home park, to be able to organize folks and really let them know about these options so that people understand, you know, your role and then also the community role? And I guess it's more about a level of trust, because I could just see you all trying to, you know, come into a community and people will be like, who are you? And may not trust, I don't know who actually comes into the community to do that. So can you just give a little insight to that about how that works?
Rob, it's Rob's team.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say this comes about in various ways. You know, the teams who go in, that's why we describe them as almost as thinking of themselves as community organizers. You know, and that's one of the things that they will talk about endlessly is building trust. Often what we see, particularly in the states where, you know, there's opportunity to purchase and they've been noticed, is we'll have residents coming to us and bringing the potential sale to our attention. In those situations, there's often a group or a committee that then becomes the board initially of the co-op. You know, and sometimes they are driving the process as much as we are, to be perfectly honest. In others, I think it's a question of finding our way. I mean, we are uniquely aware of the challenges of, you know, Hispanic communities and the language issues. You know, so we are fairly adept at translation and interpretation. And honestly, we're currently experimenting with partnering with local organizations who, you know, have that cultural awareness. But we're feeling our way with that. I mean, there is something there, and there's a better future than us just trying to teach everybody Spanish. But we're finding our way with that, to be perfectly honest.
Good to know. Thank you. I'm so interested in this. I'm sure we'll hear more about this. And I can talk to staff about kind of what the goal is of a potential partnership and what that looks like, if it's nonprofits or at the public sector level. So I think we'll be a more, you know, further conversation once we get more information and see where this commission has a role as well. So I think in the interest of time, we'll have to move on to our next agenda item. And I appreciate both Mr. Wilson and Mr. Bradley joining us today.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I would like to plug Paul's podcast. I think it's called Ownership Matters, and it's under the Rock banner. And I've listened to a few episodes, and it's really informative. And he has a great episode where he interviews John Egan, who was a city councilor in Santa Fe back in the day, who is in charge of the co-op up in Durango, Colorado now.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend. You can learn a lot more about them trying to implement this in other towns and all that stuff.
Thank you, Cody. That was a surprise and wonderful. Madam Chair and commissioners and city staff, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And we'll certainly follow up, Commissioner Padilla, and any questions you have, we're eager to be supportive of homeowners in Santa Fe for sure. Thank you.
Excellent.
Very
Thank
much
you so much.
appreciated. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, gentlemen. So we're going to move on to our agenda. We have two more items. And first we'll start off with under our discussion agenda, we have item 7A, which is a consideration of a resolution that's sponsored by Councilor Garcia and myself It's a resolution prohibiting the use of the fee in lieu of option described in the Santa Fe Homes program on the Midtown site. And I believe that Director Ladd is out of town for work. So I think I will just start off with an intro. I know we also have Daniel Hernandez, who's a consultant with the city on Midtown. And I believe that Councilor Garcia just walked into the room as well. So if I think if we want, I could just give you a little context about why we are proposing this.
Can I ask, just have one quick question. What's with the executive session that we seem to have skipped over?
I don't think there was anything in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, that's just part of the agenda template.
Oh, okay, sorry. Go ahead. Excuse me.
No executive today. So as I see it, the Midtown site provides us with an opportunity for the city to prioritize affordable housing on our terms, mostly because we own the land and we can sell and lease parcels on the site in a variety of strategic ways. And we saw some of that in the master plan that you all approved that when it came to us a couple months ago, I think. And so I just want to preface that I want to say that Midtown is not going to solve all of our affordable housing issues and our crisis, but I think it can play a role in providing as much affordable housing units and options as possible. Just a little background, I think we all know the fee in lieu option came into play in 2016, and we adopted it in ordinance, and it essentially allows developers to pay a fee in lieu as an alternative to meeting their requirements to the 15% of constructed constructed rental units. So this only applies to multifamily. And I guess the reason why I wanted to support this option and explore it is because, as you all know, we allocate funds through their Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We use it for down payment assistance, rental assistance, home repair loans, as well as facility repairs. And that funding source, part of it comes from fee in lieu, and it also comes from different other sources. The past couple of years, the council has prioritized funding to go into that fund. So in the amount of around 3 million each year. So that's really assisted us in making sure that that allocation is important, that it's going to those needs. I know that we've also seen that when we're allocating these funds, it's also been challenging because we're not seeing as many affordable units out there. We have been seeing market rate units being built. And that's been good because there has been a shortage as well across incomes. But I think what I've been struggling with is, like, at what point do we get to the threshold where we've built enough or built thousands of multi-family units the past few years, and very little affordable units have come out of those developments. And so when we know, fee in lieu has a purpose, I also feel like there's a role that we also need to look at Midtown, especially because we own it, that there is a need to really prioritize how we get affordable units built. So this was one exploration that myself and Councilor Garcia decided to take on. And I also wanted to make sure that it got on the agenda for us so that you all can weigh in. I think it's important the CDC has input on this. It wasn't initially part of the committee track. And so I guess I just really wanted to hear from you all, your thoughts on this. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it to my colleague, Councilor Garcia, so he can share his insight about this resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the commission, for allowing me to be with you this afternoon. I think Councilwoman Villarreal covered it very well. The only thing I might want to add is provide you with some data behind the numbers since fee in lieu was adopted since 2016. So since that date, the city has permitted nearly 2,300 units that are market rate. With the requirement of the 15%, that would have required roughly 340 affordable units be developed. We didn't hit that mark. There was 197 that were developed, and so that left roughly about 150 that weren't developed. When we get down to the fees, because I think that is particularly what this committee looks at, is the fees that get developed through the fee in lieu of. Put it in context, as Councilwoman Villarreal mentioned, the city has committed $3 million every year for the last couple of years. This will be the third year we have it in the budget. Since 2016, so this doesn't cover last year, but since 2016 to 2021, it's been $1.6 million. So when you look at the investment from the fee in lieu of versus the investment the city has been making, it's roughly 50% of one year versus that fee is over 6 years. And so from my perspective, the dire need that we have for affordable units to infiltrate the market is necessary. We have a lot of market rate units, but what we need is affordable units. That request and need came out of the community development plan that was adopted by the city council. It was a top priority that we need affordable units developed at that campus. One thing I do want to make clear is this proposal is not proposing to add any additional units. What it's proposing is to ensure that the units that we are hoping to be built ultimately get built. So with that, we do hope that by eliminating the fee in lieu, we will work hand in hand with the development community to understand the need. And we will work in collaboration with them. And what I mean by that is because the city owns the property, we have the golden flexibility to set the price of the lease or sale of the property. We can work with the developers as they determine what that cost might be to develop those affordable units. The mechanism we're going to go about to lease or dispose of property is through an RFP process. It's not going to be your typical put it on the market, real estate people come. There's going to be a formal process. Part of that process, should this pass and be adopted, would a portion of it would the developer would clearly identify it's going to cost X amount of dollars to develop these units. They have to come with a formal proposal saying that. Because that is formal and because it is would be helping the indigent of our community, we can lower the price of sale or lease of the property. So the cost is not pushed on to the developer. The person that actually loses out on the money would be the city. But we strongly feel that that is a dire service that the city owes its residents of the community. Similar to providing any other service to the residents, swimming pools, baseball fields, pickleball courts, etc. Those are services that are provided to the community. Affordable housing, we strongly feel, is a service that should be provided to the community. So in conjunction with that, we would work hand in hand with the developers. So the developer's not taking on these additional costs of developing the units. With that being said, we also would hope that the developer would see the value in maybe additionally developing other resources for the community. There are many tools that we have as a city to work with the developers as that property gets developed. And so what I mean by that is we can also provide supports for infrastructure development. We can also provide supports for, fee waivers, et cetera, as folks are going through the whole permitting process. There are many other additional mechanisms that will still be on the table. This does not eliminate any tool in our tool belt. What it does is it allows us to maximize and ensure the number of affordable units that will be developed. when we adopted the community development plan, we set out we were gonna have a 30% threshold of affordable housing at the campus. What that accounts for is that 15% of those fee in lieu would not be opted out. That plan, what that plan takes into consideration is that every single developer is going to say, fee in lieu of, nope, we're going to develop the unit. So to put it in an example, if the first developer that comes to the table wants to pay the fee versus developing the unit, somehow, some way, whether it's the next developers or ultimately the city, would work to ensure we meet that 30% threshold. And that is going to change as we dispose of the property through sale or lease, because ultimately what could happen is, and this is an example, by no means am I saying this is going to happen, but if we get through the process, and if every developer pays the fee, the city would then be responsible for picking up that slack of developing those units, which in turn would mean that the taxpayers would foot the bill of developing those units. And so what we're hoping here is that the city and the development community will work hand in hand to get some of our pressing needs met for our community. Not only will it provide housing for our folks, it'll impact things such as climate change, because folks are going to have to commute back and forth from whether it's Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, Espanola, the surrounding communities. Not only will this impact housing today, but the proposal is at minimum units will be available for 10 years. As we develop the RFP, we could say 30 years. One thing we have to circle back to remember that this is city property. At the end of the day, this is taxpayer property, and we get to say how we develop the property. We get to be the driver of how we meet the needs of our community. And so with that, we can incorporate all those needs into the future RFPs as we begin to either sell or lease these properties. And this proposal in front of us puts one of those tools in our tool belt, saying, we want the units. We understand there's that fee that might be lost, but we would rather have the units. And so with that being, I want to make sure you're getting all the information, all the data, because it can come down to numbers, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what you all look at, is the numbers. And there are 135 units through this proposal plan, that through the Midtown plan, 1,100 units, 135 that could be potentially impacted through the fee in lieu, right? That's, again, if to use the example, if all developers paid the fee for all of those units, 135, that would bring roughly $945,000 in the fees to us. And so I think the question at hand that the public has been asking, do we want $945,000 or do we want 135 units? And what I've been hearing loud and clear from the community is, we need the 135 units. And we don't need them now. We needed them years ago, and we're hurting because we don't have them right now. And so that's what this proposal in front of it is. It's not proposing any new units. It's not proposing to take any tools away. Actually, there's been developers who say this can pencil out because we have the flexibility to lower the price of the property. And ultimately, this will lead to long-term community benefit for our residents, not only folks looking for housing now, but housing for decades to come.
Thank you,
So-
Commissioner. Thank you, Councilor Garcia. I'm gonna, in the interest of time, because we have another big item, I think since Daniel Hernandez is here, I'll give you a chance to, or even Cody, to say anything. I'm sure that you all, the commission, read the packet material. And so that provided a lot of information. I don't know if staff wanted to add the conversation before we get into questions.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Again, I'm Danny Hernandez. I'm the project manager for the redevelopment of Midtown. Hello. And Alexandra is actually with the mayor. these next few days, doing some, working on some equitable city issues. So anyway, they're away, but she asked me to be here today. Everything that the counselor said is absolutely right. The baseline is 30% of all the units. So if we develop 1,000, that means 300 of those units will be affordable to low and moderate income families. So that's done. This resolution doesn't change that percentage. But we've been working through the pros and cons of this. One of the things that came out of the planning process was people wanted Midtown to feel organic. They didn't want to feel like some big developer came and it all feels the same. So they wanted small parcels, large parcels, and so that, you know, the block patterns felt the way a neighborhood feels like when it grows over time. So when we parcel out the site, there will be different size parcels. The way that feasibility actually works is to, you know, there are the capital costs. We can lower the price of the land that will make it develop, the development financeable. And I'm going to use really raw, low numbers to make it simple for us. But so let's just say it costs $1,000 to build that project. Developer says, I have $1,000 and yeah, I'll build that project for $1,000. They build a project and then they have their restricted units for low income people and then their market rate. So they'll push the market rate, like we heard in the previous presentation, to the maximum, but they are limited by the low income ones. And they realize that it costs, say, $10,000 a month to operate this project. But when they add those rents up at the end of the day, they only get $9,000. So they're running in the red over the course of the next, you know, 50 years that project is alive, or 100 years, however. But where are they going to get that additional $1,000? There's no subsidy, nowhere. There's some market rate project, and they just happen to build the on-site units, affordable units. So that then makes the project infeasible. So there's a sweet spot when the developers are figuring all this out. It's like, yeah, I can build that for $1,000, but it's the operations of a rental project where the feasibility really hits the road. So that's the issue. So when you start getting a small site, you only have a certain amount of units to run your project. You have a certain amount of operating costs, landscape, maintenance, repairs, the staff to, you know, accounting, all the stuff that goes into an operating budget to manage this project. So that's really where the feasibility is. We wanted to make it possible. It's already written into the inclusionary zoning, but we want to make it possible for developer to actually affirmatively say it's just not feasible on this site because we can't get enough income off to operate this project. So we want to see their performance. We want to see why they've assumed something. It's like, well, you could put your market rate rents higher and maybe then it becomes feasible. But to have that opportunity to engage the developer partners in that, it seems beneficial to us, because what it also does, as Michael was saying, councilperson was saying is, sorry, I know him as Michael on the street, but so anyway, when, you know, we were then able to negotiate, like, well, if you're not going to give us that, then we want this plus. So we could potentially say, well, we know that the inclusionary fee in lieu fee is, I'm making the numbers up again, is $100. We want 150. But to be able to negotiate that, because it is our land, we can then do that. Or we want to say, well, we want a community center at the bottom floor, health center, whatever it is, but we get then to negotiate these things that allows the city to be more entrepreneurial going into these projects. We don't know what will be feasible or not into the future. We know markets change. We hear scary stories about the economy going downhill, whatever. So we'll be able to play in that market. If things improve, market rents go higher, that isn't necessarily low-income people, but it makes the project more feasible. So anyway, these are the things we want to be able to negotiate with our developer partners rather than hindering the process from the very beginning. So we see the pros and cons, and those are the ways that we're sort of evaluating the resolution. We all agree, I think, that affordable housing in Midtown, huge priority. It's always a driving factor. And if we can start at 30%, maybe we get higher as time goes on, that's great news too. But we wanted to set the benchmark at 30% at least, and that's not changing.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm going to go ahead and jump into questions from the commission. And just so you know, my computer's saying that it's going to restart automatically and I don't get to stop it. So if I have to jump off the Zoom and jump back on, Then maybe Cody can run the meeting if I miss something. So thank you. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I first heard that the fee in lieu of was going to be removed from development is how I first heard of this. And this was, I think, going into your council meeting where you presented this resolution. Well, I was very concerned about that. Very concerned of the fact that the CDC has worked really hard on the fee in lieu effort to make sure developers had a little bit of carrot coming into the community to develop properties, develop projects and so forth here in Santa Fe. But when it was made clear to me that, and I read it and got the information firsthand, I realized it was specifically for the Midtown campus and the Midtown development. And I think it's a perfect opportunity for the city really to put their, to step up and put their money where put the money where the mouth is. I mean, and really have, as Daniel stated, the ability to work with a developer, incentivize the developer to come in with maybe a lower cost, property cost for them to be able to do that. I think the fee in lieu of being eliminated from the Midtown campus is indeed a good opportunity. I hope that carrot works. And I think there's if it is, then we see how that could possibly roll out into other projects. I think it's a perfect opportunity for the city to step up and say, hey, we are committed to it, and this is how we're going to do it. So I know that it'll continue for other properties outside of the Midtown. So I feel it's a good opportunity for the city to step up and do it. There she goes.
Actually, can you hear me from another source here? Okay.
There you are.
All right, I changed from an iPad. So while my other computer is updating, I'm using this. So any other questions? Thank you, Commissioner Padilla. Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was on the planning commission. I don't know if you were on there at the time, Madam Chair, in 2008, when recession hit, and the developer says we can't afford you to do anything, and we want to waive something. I thought that was when the fee in lieu was waived. What was waived back then?
In 2008?
Yes.
Cody, do you have the history on that? Because there were two different time periods. One, we did like a pilot, and I want to say that actually took place in 2016, but was there something earlier than that?
Pretty sure, and it was never restored. That's why I'm always leery of doing, for only a year, we're gonna do such and such, and then, it becomes in perpetuity. And I just think this could be a way to readjust our thinking in Santa Fe to at least apply to the Midtown campus and set up a floor that we actually want to see some things built, not just contribute to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is great because we can help make some decisions here that make a difference. But on the other hand, it doesn't take the place of actually building something. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Watkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to, if you will, we really don't have much time, but for all of you to briefly respond to those who have who are very much opposed to this. How do you respond to the points that they've made?
Defer to Madam Chair, and I'm happy to go after.
Thank you. No, go ahead.
The only thing maybe I would respond to in Mr. Hernandez's comments was he did give the example of working with the developers and showing, well, it's not feasible. That example clearly shows that developer's gonna get opt out of the fee, right? The example of, we can't have affordable units because it's not feasible, we'll always be in the red. Then we're never, ever gonna get affordable units developed in this city, if we're moving forward with that thinking. I think we have to show that we can work with the developer, because ultimately we can lower the cost of the property to zero. And to make that not feasible and be in operation in the red, I like to see some data that backs that up. That's one thing that we don't really have. We have a lot of data that shows how if you eliminate the fee in lieu for private owned property development, yes, it is making it much more challenging. But this is a very unique situation, given that this is publicly owned property and we have the flexibility to change how much we ask for the property. So I think that in itself is a huge game changer, because if you come in thinking we can't do the affordable units because it's going to have the developer in the red, then in my opinion, then we're never going to get out of this affordable housing hole. We never are. And there are developers who know that this can work. They absolutely stand behind that. They won't be in the red. And I think until we see submissions through a formal RFP process, then we can fully understand if a developer can or cannot make it work. Because there is no data that shows it won't work. Now,
That's fine. I
Okay.
know we're, I hear you. It's interesting question.
Madam Chair? I know I'm out the door here, but
Love this.
I'd like to comment. I was on the board of United Way in 1989 when we first had Tierra Contenta as a gleam in our eye, and so here we still are. And we need the units, and I agree with you, Commissioner Hughes, that it's time to readjust and we've got to give a push. And this is a great idea, I think, and the part about the RFP and talking to these developers and saying, how can we make this work? How can we get some units? Those 1900, is it 1900, did I read it right? That we don't have, that we need for the lowest income people. The vast majority of our problems in society come out of those families who lack everything, including hope about anything, and turn out to be lifelong users of all kinds of services that are expensive. And a lot of it just has to do with some stability. A home, a roof over your head. Those units, we got to build those units somehow, or we just give up, because otherwise, what do we do? Anyway, there we go. And I came to this meeting, it's my last meeting, because I didn't want to just disappear on all the commissioners after 10 years. So thank you, Madam Chair.
I didn't mean to disappear you earlier when I didn't see you on this Zoom, so I'm sorry about that. I still feel bad.
No problem.
Are there any, Commissioner Torres or anyone else that had any comments about this or questions?
I think we have to try something different, because what has been done hasn't provided the numbers that we need. So I support the resolution for now.
One question.
Sure, Commissioner Lopez.
This is a resolution, so it's not binding, right? Yeah, so it's still a crapshoot sort of, right? And the only thing that's binding that the council does is ordinances, right?
That's correct. However, our fee in lieu is actually a resolution. Unless I'm wrong, Cody, I don't remember it being in an ordinance form. It's always been in a resolution.
Has some power.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions or comments from the commission or our guests? I don't see any. So let me get to my agenda. So if that's the case, this is obviously, we're making a recommendation to the governing body. So what is the wish of the commission?
I move that we support, that we indicate to the council that we are supportive of this resolution.
Okay, wait, so motion?
There was a second from Commissioner Torres.
Okay, thank you. There's a little of a delay on my computer. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any other discussions or questions? All right.
The language
but-
I'm sorry. Consideration of a resolution means that will decide to approve or not approve or support or not support. It's just not clear.
We're voting on it, whether to approve or not approve, but it does go to the governing body as a recommendation from the CDC.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Tony, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Villarreal,
Yes.
Commissioner Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins,
Marquez is off.
Yes, again, yes.
What?
Commissioner Padilla,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, passes. Thank you. Thank you to Councilor Garcia and to Daniel Hernandez for joining us today. I'm going to move to the next item. How weird, I don't see Commissioner Padilla anymore on my screen. I'm going to try to jump back into my other screen, so just look out for that. But we're going to move on to item 7A, which is a request for approval for the 2023 through 2028 consolidated plan for submittal to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as a condition to the city's Community Development Block Grant Program. And we have, Cody Minnick is with us, obviously, for staff, and we also have Avilia Bueno from Root Policy Research, which was a consultant of ours for this particular requirement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize. When I set up this meeting, I didn't know that last item was on here, so I apologize for stacking this so heavily. And we will try to rush through our presentation just to leave as much time for questions.
So,
However,
although we did see this, so folks should be familiar with this document.
that's true.
Yeah, yes, true.
Cool. All right, so I'll let Avilia jump in.
Yes. You have the, it's showing with the notes. I was wondering if you can show full screen.
Yeah. Apologize, I'm a
Maybe duplicate. Well, I can start. So we'll do a refresher on the background. This is data that you've already seen. So I'll go over the background and trends, and then Cody will go over the priority needs and goals and activities, and then we can take your input. So as you know, the consolidated plan is a planning document required by HUD. It uses a combination of data and community outreach to determine housing needs. And it's required to be produced every 5 years as a condition for receiving funding. And the plan is now available for public comment until May 10. And if you can go another 2 slides. Yeah, and as you have seen, a big part of the analysis is the rental housing gaps. We've discussed before that the reason for the change in the rental housing gaps, the decrease is most likely the outflow of lower income renters who can no longer afford to live in the city. So that's why the rental gap has decreased. However, investments in affordable housing that the city has done in the previous decades have allowed it to sort of stabilize their supply of affordable units. It's just not enough. If we can move to the next slide, Cody. The biggest housing need among households in Santa Fe is cost burden. It's significant among renters more than owners, and it's very significant among households with incomes below 30% of the AMI. It's also been a growing problem among elderly homeowners. If you can move to the next slide. In addition, we've seen that cost burden has been expanded among renters in middle income segments of the income distribution. We see that cost burden has increased significantly. For example, severe cost burden among renters earning between $35,000 and $50,000 has increased from 12% to 35%, and these renters paying over 50% of their income in rent. But it also has increased just regular cost burden paying over 30% among renters earning $50,000 to $75,000. So there's definitely need in the market for market rate units as well, not just affordable units that could soften and alleviate some of the process and increase vacancies so that filtering of units to different price brackets can occur in the city. Can we go to the next slide? In terms of homelessness, the point in time count tends to undercount or underestimate the problem of homelessness in the city. What we heard from community engagement is that there's been an increasing difficulty finding landlords who accept vouchers. So even though these people have a voucher to get into a housing unit, they are having a lot of trouble getting landlords to accept vouchers. They can get much higher rents in the market. And there's also a rise in hidden homelessness, which is individuals who are typically working or staying, but are staying with friends or family, staying in hotels, motels, or living in their vehicles, but have no prospects for permanent housing anytime soon. And these residents generally do not access support services, and they are very difficult to quantify. But nonetheless, when units come to the market, there will be a lot of demand for affordable units. Can we go to the next slide? And excuse me?
Sorry, that was from outside the conference room.
Okay. In terms of community input, the community engagement process included resident survey, resident focus groups, stakeholder focus groups, stakeholder interviews, and this public comment period. The resident survey collected over 400 responses. The top priorities you can see are more affordable rental housing and more affordable home ownership and responding to homelessness. Those are the top three. Within those priorities, programs that the community would like to see in terms of more affordable rental housing, the top programs were programs to help households pay for security deposits and first of or last month's rent, and increases in resources for residents to avoid displacement. In terms of more affordable home ownership, they wanted to see the construction of starter homes, which are smaller and more affordable homes for first-time home buyers, and programs to help households get down payment assistance to buy a house. And in terms of responding to homelessness, what residents indicated the programs they wanted to see was expanding funding for case management and wraparound services for people transitioning out of homelessness, as well as increasing the inventory of permanent supportive housing rental homes for people transitioning out of shelters and for very low income renters at risk of homelessness. And then I will let Cody finish the rest.
Thanks, Amelia. So out of that community engagement, obviously the Amelia touched upon it, but we did do that resident housing survey. We had almost 500 responses, and the top three priority needs identified were more affordable rental housing, more affordable homeownership, and then responding to homelessness. So between that and some of the other focus groups and stakeholder interviews that were conducted, we built upon that goal setting exercise we did the CDC, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago at this point. And we reconfigured it. So I want to apologize. This is like HUD semantics. They identify priority needs, which is pretty much the goal, whereas associated goals to HUD is more like the activities to get to those needs. So the 4 priority needs we identified were ending chronic homelessness, ensuring housing stability for all, ensuring homeownership is sustainable for all, and then the grab bag one where we move outside of the housing spectrum is improving social determinants of health and addressing emerging needs. And we kind of simplified this from past years, and the overall goal of this document is to guide HUD funding and then also see where there's gaps in funding where HUD dollars don't fit. And luckily we have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to fill in those needs as well. So under ending chronic homelessness, oh, and then by the way, the goals, I really tried to make sense of it so they would line up to the fairly restrictive goal outcome indicators that HUD allows us to have. So when it comes CAPER season, it makes a lot more sense than it has been. So under ending chronic homelessness, we identified these top 4 goals: increase availability of supportive services, expand options for overnight shelter beds, increase and improve street outreach and support, and finally increase available permanent supportive housing. For ensuring housing stability for all, this is where we have expand choice for affordable rental opportunities, expand choice for affordable home buying opportunities, and improve condition and preserve affordable rental housing. And under ensuring homeownership is sustainable for all, we're trying to cover both economically and energy efficiency wise. So we have provide for owner occupied housing rehab, provide for energy efficiency upgrades and accessibility, and maintain financial stability for low to moderate income homeowners. And then finally, the improving social determinants of health. We have the increased economic opportunities for LMI populations. This is things like kind of more creative endeavors we could use CDBG for. So like the Youth Work Social Justice Kitchen that we're going to fund this next year. The expand public facilities and infrastructure for LMI populations. 4C, I'm actually sorry, this is an old graph. I had a thoughtful feedback from our MPO from Leah Ingve, who suggested that we break that up and to expand access to open spaces and parks, as well as now there's an additional goal, just expand access to transportation. And then finally, 4D, increase programming to prevent displacement. And for that one, I had in mind some of the stuff we've talked about at the CDC, like so we have the ability and wiggle room to use CDBG and for things like the community land trust, or if we want to explore these resident-owned cooperatives as well. So finally, I won't spend very much time on this. We have all the activities that you've recommended funding for. So we have Habitat's home repair program, Adelante school liaison program. We're doing the Interfaith Summer Safe Haven for All, youth shelters, transitional living and street outreach programs, HomeWise's down mortgage principal reduction program. We're going to be upgrading the heating and air conditioning units at Sunrisa with St. E's. And then finally, Youth Work Social Justice Kitchen. And then, of course, we are still working on the Safe Routes to School connector trail. We hit a snag with the environmental review, so we'll be delivering that activity over the next calendar year as well. And that is it. We want to open it up for questions and feedback, which is the most important part.
Excellent. Thank you, Avilia and Cody, for the presentation. And I'll move into questions from the commission.
Madam Chair, I think your outreach is exemplary this time. Really did a good job of getting feedback from many hundreds of people. It's really refreshing to see that, and they hit it on the nail too.
Thank you. Sure.
That was also something I was like, yes, that's great. 400 is actually really phenomenal for survey results. So thank you, staff. And also, I think Avilia's team was part of that too, correct? You guys did, your team did listening sessions, I believe.
Yes, we did focus groups and interviews, but for the survey, yeah, the credit goes to the city staff.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any other questions? Everyone read the 175-page document, is that correct?
What is it?
This- The executive summary was stellar. I thought it brought up some really important points. And we have reviewed this. Cody, can you just remind us this requirement and why we do it every 5 years, right?
Yeah, so there's 3 requirements for the HUD funding. It's every 3 to 5 years. We choose 5 to
Wisely.
yeah, wisely, I suppose. Where you develop a consolidated plan and you have to update your needs assessment and market analysis component of that and get the feel for the state of housing in the community. And then based on those, that's where you develop the priority needs, which will drive HUD funding over the next 3 to 5 years, and then the goals. And then those goals really do need to line up with every subsequent action plan within that period. So it's actually probably 3 years would be a better bet because it's fairly restrictive. When you try to forecast your goals, it's kind of based off of that first year action plan. So like for some of the programs we fund, like mostly the public services, those are pretty consistent. But like something like the Youth Works Social Justice Kitchen, it's kind of hard to forecast that or what other kind of projects might come up. But yeah, so that's basically it.
Thank you, Cody. Any other questions or comments? No?
No.
I'm just proud of all of us and the work we do in CDC through CDBG and the Affordable Housing Trust Funds to be able to continue supporting all these priorities as best we can with the funding sources that we do have. And so I'm just thankful for you all facilitating that. And if there's no other questions or comments, what is the wish of the commission?
I move approval, and I want to add, I think that you guys did a great job of it.
Thank you, Ken.
In spite of the weird requirements for format and weather.
Second.
Yeah,
Second by Ken.
thank you. We have a motion and second. Any other comments or questions? Tony, can you give us a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Watkins,
Yes.
Mr. Padilla,
Yes,
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Motion passes. Thank you all. Thank you, Avilia, for joining us. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Hold on, let me find my agenda. We are on matters from staff.
No matters from staff. Oh, actually, one matter from staff. I think I sent you an email about that RFA we have out for those capital outlay funds. That RFA closes early next month, so we'll have that on the agenda for you all to review, and I'll try to. So far, 0 submissions, so we'll see. Might need to put it back out.
Wait, 0 submissions for what again, Cody? Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
All right, we put out that RFA for the state capital outlay funds that we had. That was appropriated originally for Santa Fe Suites, and then it went to the council. They wanted to put it out their competitive process. We actually didn't know it was in the budget because we thought they were withholding it because of the audit stuff, because it's coming from the state. But then now we actually are in a situation where we really need to obligate it to something. So we rushed together that request for application. And hopefully it's fairly restrictive, so hopefully someone applies.
Hmm.
Send it to some partners and there's some interest. But that will be on the agenda next month.
Okay, thanks for the update. Any other information or
That's it.
items? Tony, do you have anything for us? No? All
No, ma'am.
right. Matters from the commission.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am. That was Commissioner Lopez, I think. I can't see you.
You know, it's been 10 years now that I've served, and it's been a pleasure, and it's been an education. And it's really nice to see the commission in so strong. Everybody's really strong and really informed. And remember when I first got on, I think Ken was one of the few. There was maybe a couple more who really knew what they were talking about, and it's great. And if I had to offer anything, I mean, I was city staff in 2013, and then Kate Noble at the time asked me, will you please serve? And also Commissioner Padilla was here, and he's really well informed. Excuse me for getting that. And she asked me to serve, and because I had come off of working up the city, I felt like I had enough to work on it. But if I would recommend anything, it would be to try and find someone who has some kind of constituency that has to do with housing. And I really don't have that anymore. And so I'm sure you're all thinking about that anyway. But it's been a pleasure, and I'm gonna spend a lot of time with my grandkids in Massachusetts. So I'm sure I'll see you all around. Thank you. And staff, bless you for an amazing job, and counselor for your work at the forefront. I mean, that's a hard job to be a counselor, and bless you, bless anybody who agrees to do that job. And so I'm sure I'll see you all around. Hope so, someplace.
Enjoy.
Thank you, I will.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. I'll wait to say my comments on my section of the agenda. Are there any other comments or information the commissioners want to share? I don't see anyone's hand up. No.
None here.
All right. Well, I just wanted to start off by thanking Commissioner Lopez for her tenure on the commission. It's been such a pleasure working with you, and your perspectives and your insight and your lived experience, I think, has added so much value to our group. And I think people don't realize, like I didn't realize when Carla told me, oh, I've been on it for 10 years. I was like, wow, how did that happen? Why did you want to do that? This is free labor. But I think it's been important to have your voice, and I'm going to miss you. And I hope to see you in another realm, something more fun, like a fun social environment instead of a work environment. But I think it's just, I just value your insight, and all of you, really. I just, it's like, it's hard to let these changes, that we have on our commission happen when people, it's like we're part of a family. We see each other often. And although right now we've been doing Zoom, I just, I really appreciate the camaraderie, and also your positivity. Carla, has just been very wonderful. And we didn't get to really thank Gabriela Marquez in this way either, because she wasn't able to attend. So we have a little plan in store to honor both of you that staff will be assisting with. So we'll be in touch about that later. And we'll be in touch with Gabriela as well. So thank you, Carla. Thank you all. The one thing I did want to say, maybe actually, Cody, maybe you could just briefly update us. We are collecting some applications right now. When's the cutoff date or due date again?
That would be, excuse me, I believe it's on 4/28, on the 28th, which is
Okay,
Friday.
great.
And there have been applications?
Yes, so there's a new system, a new protocol through the clerk's office where you have to do it through PrimeGov. So we've had more interested parties than actual official applicants. We have 2 in there currently.
And I'm a little worried about that process because PrimeGov is not easy to navigate. So if you all know of folks that want to apply, I still think you should have them reach out to staff. And then if they need assistance through PrimeGov, we can make that happen. I just don't want to miss out on folks that may not be tech savvy, and PrimeGov is not easy to navigate for anyone. So I just want to make sure that we're not missing out on folks. and there's still time for folks to apply, and if there's other people that you think would be interested and can make the commitment, that would be wonderful to let them know of this opportunity.
I've sent it out to all our housing community partners as well as to the Santa Fe Housing Action Coalition, so they're gonna help blast it through their social media and hopefully get a little bit more engagement on that. But yeah, please feel free to share with anyone you might know as well.
Great. Well, that's all I have. I'm going to be jumping into another Zoom, and just thank you all for your support. And if you have any questions or want to reach out to me, feel free to do so. And I think we are good. The next meeting is Wednesday, May 17th. Is that correct, Cody?
Yep, that's correct.
All righty. See you all then, hopefully in person. Have a great day. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair.